Good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Anton. I manage business development with Gideon Taylor. We are excited to have all of you join us for this webinar this morning. This is one of our Lunch and Learn series. This is something that we try to host on a monthly basis to give folks an idea of new and exciting automated solutions that organizations are building out literally worldwide with GT eForms inside their PeopleSoft applications. This one is a little bit of a departure from the recent ones that we've been doing. This one focuses on tools and templates that are available to all of our GT eForms clients. So if you're an enterprise subscriber to GT eForms, you've got access to download and implement any of these solutions. And we're always happy to help provide guidance on those where you might need it. So that's what the focus of this particular webinar is. In terms of just a little bit of housekeeping, if you've got questions as we go along, feel free to post those in the chat or the Q&A. We'll be keeping an eye on both of those, and our speakers this morning will be happy to take a pause and address those as they come in. We will be sending out a link to the recording of this webinar to everybody who is registered to attend. So if for some reason you need to drop early, or if you've got coworkers that might be interested in reviewing the content, you can go ahead and feel free to share that with them once you receive it. You can expect that in the next few days here. I think that is it for me. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our presenters this morning. Alisha Malcarne is manager of our business analyst services as well as our training services. And Kevin Kuntz is joining us from North Dakota University System. He is an HCM business analyst, and NDUS has been using GT eForms for the past few years and has done some really cool things with the tool and the associated technologies. So we're excited to have both of them, and I think that I am handing this off to Alisha.
That's right. Thank you, Scott.
You bet.
Welcome, everybody. We have quite a group today. We appreciate you all joining us today, and we're excited to share with you today some more information. We're calling this Beyond the Framework. So we're talking about additional tools and features that are available to you, as Scott mentioned, as enterprise licensing clients and customers that can help you expand or extend the GT framework. And we will spend some time talking about two different types of features or solutions and the difference between those. And we'll talk about, we won't have time, unfortunately, to go through every solution template that's out there, but we'll give you a high level view of some of the things that are out there, show you how you can get more information. And then the last portion of this presentation today, we'll turn the time over to Kevin, where he'll be able to share their experience at the North Dakota University System using one of our solution templates. So let me go ahead and get my screen share going. All right. So Scott already did introductions for you. I'm Alisha Malcarne. I've been with GT since 2005 with a little break in the middle there for some other endeavors. I, as Scott mentioned, manage our business analyst team. And then we also have Kevin joining us. Appreciate Kevin and the expertise he's going to bring as well. So beyond the framework, what are some of the additional GT solutions that are available to you? They fall really under three buckets. We have solution templates, bolt-ons, and then client forms. So these would be, let's talk about the difference between those, because we do get this question often. We see it a lot in our training classes as people come through training or as they're new clients. We talk about solution templates or bolt-ons, and we get this question often. So when we're talking about a solution template, we're talking about something that was built for a client, but may have more generic uses and something that we've been able to sometimes apply at other clients or feel like it has the capacity or ability to be used by others. So it has a more generic or universally useful functionality that we make available to other clients. So it's important to note here, and we'll talk about some differences in a second, that these are solution templates that were developed for a client. They aren't necessarily generic to start with, but they have some generic features or functionality that could be useful to others. A bolt-on is considered an official portion or an integration with the GT framework. It's not delivered with the initial install of the framework, but it is something that can be provided to you in your organization free of charge. It comes with a base level functionality and then code hooks that you can use to extend or customize that beyond that base level generic base level functionality. And then last would be just client forms. So these are things that we make available to you, and we'll look at where those are all available today. Projects that we've done for other clients or that clients have done on their own and shared with us, that project, that eForm project, that work that they put together. And those are very rarely simple enough to just apply to your organization. They would very rarely have I seen somebody able to just take somebody else's form and apply it in their organization, because we find that those tend to be very specific to the client, and it's more out there for your information to see what's possible. But if you do find something that is a client form that it looks really useful and interesting to you, we can always also connect you or provide you with access to that information or that form if we have it. So quick breakdown, the difference between a bolt-on versus a solution template. So in a bolt-on, GT covers the cost of packaging up that solution. So all you have to do is make a request and then we will provide that to you. With a solution template, slightly different. Those costs, any costs of packaging up the solution would be paid for by the client. Now, we do have a number of solution templates we've already packaged up. It's very easy for us there to then hand that off to you, and there wouldn't be additional costs, but it depends solution to solution. So generally, bolt-on, there's no additional cost to package that up. Solution template, there may be some additional cost to package that up to provide that template to you. With a bolt-on, there's no cost to support that base level functionality. So as you're installing, if you find issues or run into any errors or bugs, you can get support for that without any additional cost to you. On a solution template, if there's any additional support needed after you install that package, that would be there would be required consulting services or costs associated with that. Bolt-ons will include documentation, official GT documentation. Solution templates, it depends. We have some documentation on some of our solution templates. Others, we really don't have much. So it depends template to template, and there's no guarantee that there will be that documentation out there. And then the bolt-on, as I mentioned before, does have that generic base level functionality. With our solution template, it may or may not be generic. We really can't guarantee that it has been scrubbed of client-specific data. So there are oftentimes with solution templates when that does require still some additional work from your organization to make that solution template work in your environments. So where can I get access? Where can you get access to this information? This is all out on our form resource library. So if you do not have access to our form resource library, then you can send an email to our support organization. That's just support@gideontaylor.com. And they will be able to grant you access to this. Generally, if you've been through one of our trainings, if you have contacted us through Help Center, oftentimes we grant that access, but certainly training, we make sure that we give you access to this as well as our customer self-service. But there are lots of people who, either haven't gone through training or are newer to an organization and may not have access to that. So a simple email saying, please give me access to the form resource library, and we can go ahead and get that set up for you. I'm going to pop off of my presentation here for a second because I want to show you the form resource library quickly so you can see where to find this information. When you come to the form resource library, see there's some buckets here. These are links that take you to client templates, client forms. So HCM forms that we've developed or that clients have given us information on the forms that they have developed. In the HCM pillar, you'll find those here bucketed. When you click on that link, I'll click on it. You can see we have it grouped into benefits, employment status, etc. And each of those pillars between HCM, Campus Solutions, and Finance will have different solutions visible there. The section we're going to talk about today, I'm going to point out today, is this bolt-on solution templates and features. So the first section, those bolt-ons I talked about, there's a section here, and then there's a section around solution templates. We'll talk about these a little bit more detail. And then additionally, these are just feature videos. If you're a user of our configuration tools, these are just helpful features. So there's some webinars that talking about advanced workflow, configuring navigation buttons. So this is just a helpful site of additional features or tools that may be helpful to you in your form development. Let's just, for example, if I want to dig into the bolt-ons, then if I click on that bolt-ons link, and that will take me now to our bolt-ons page where I'm able to see some examples here of the Action Center bolt-on, as well as the batch tool. All right, let's get back into presentation here. So let's talk quick about our bolt-ons. There are two official GT bolt-ons. The first one is the Action Center. What the Action Center does is it provides a summary view of eForms that are awaiting approval. So it's intended to be for approvers or individuals in your workflow. And it gives them a summary list of all the eForms that are awaiting their approval and the ability then to batch, approve, deny, recycle, add comments. They're able to do all of that in a batch or in mass, in a group setting, as opposed to having to go into each form individually. So that's the Action Center. We'll look at that a little more detail in just a second. The second bolt-on then is our batch tool. And this, similarly, it does create multiple eForms then through a batch process, and that's done through a CSV file. So let's take a quick look at those two, just to familiarize yourself with these two. So this is a view of the Action Center. This is, I believe this one is from the University of Oklahoma. They use the Batch Center just for their additional pay form. And as you can see, there's the ability here to filter which forms show in the list below. And this is something that the individual user would see, so the approver. They can filter by form type, department. This is configurable. Again, we provide base functionality, but then code hooks and other things to be able to customize this for the needs of your organization. It shows to them how many forms then are filtered. They can add comments. So if they click on comments or add in comments here and then hit save, it will save those comments to all the forms that have been selected. They can also pick a form action where they can choose approve, deny, recycle all of the selected forms. And you'll see the ability to select all or select individually with this checkbox over here. And then there's also abilities to do things like look for more info on a form. And then, of course, customize this. We have many clients who have customized this to their individual organizational needs and find this tool to be a helpful add-on to their framework. All right, next one I want to talk about is the batch tool. So I mentioned this starts from a CSV file. So you can see this is just an example, again, of an additional pay, also from Oklahoma, University of Oklahoma. So we're setting up the data in a CSV file, multiple rows, or excuse me, columns and rows of all of the data that needs to then be loaded into the form to kick that form off, to initiate that form. And then you're bringing that CSV file into our batch tool. uploading that. Our tool does provide some error messaging to let you know whether or not there are any issues. And then you can see here, it also shows you once we've loaded that and processed it, that if it was able to successfully create a form, then that form ID will show there. So this is very high level. I'm not giving you all the ins and outs of the batch tool, but it gives you an idea of what is possible with the batch tool. We do offer a training course if this is something that you're interested in. There's certainly documentation out there. But in addition, we have a 2-hour training course that we've developed recently. You can register for a dedicated session for your organization, or we have an upcoming session in November 12th, that you could sign up for just a seat in that training class and learn more about the batch tool, how to set up your CSV, how to set up the tool, and some tips and tricks. We've learned a lot in the process of working with this tool, and this little QR code here on my screen should be active. If this is something that you're interested in registering for, the training class, you can use that QR code to get you to our registration page. All right, I'm going to move on to the next one. So now let's talk about our solution templates. You'll see 2 bolt-ons and a lot of solution templates. So we have in total 15 that we've determined are solution templates in various states, as I mentioned. Some are very built out and have a lot of documentation. Lots of clients have implemented. We have a lot of videos that can show you what's possible with that template. Whereas others, we have very little information because it's something that's either new and we just haven't built up that documentation, or we're still working on getting those. So the couple of these that I'll point out here: approval management. This is a pivot grid chart-based dashboard. This one's a little tricky right now because PeopleSoft has made some changes to pivot grids. So you can see what's out there. It's not something that's easily right now packageable if you are familiar with how pivot grids have changed a bit. Augmented routing, we're going to talk about this one quite a bit. So this is what Kevin's going to focus on today. This is a really awesome tool, and he's going to talk about how they've been able to, the challenge that they were facing, and how augmented routing helped them to meet that. Attachments, we have a couple of different types of attachment tools, whether it's attaching documents to completed forms or to email notifications. We had a client that needed those files that were attached in a form to also be attached to those emails, and we have created a template to do that. Our ePath forms, if you're an HCM customer, you may very well be familiar with our ePath form templates. Those are quite robust, quite built out. We've had a lot of clients implement those, lots of documentation. So that's a very mature template. We do have a couple of file management systems, third-party systems that we have created integrations with, specifically OnBase, Perceptive Content, and Laserfish. So we have the code to connect or to interface with those third-party file management systems, and that is something that we are able to share as well. Fluid person search, if you're familiar with ePath, it's the person search that you see within our ePath template. It doesn't have to only be used in ePath, so it's a template that could be used even for a student search. So that's a template that's out there. Form type search security. This is a table that allows you to determine who should see which form tasks based on role or other attributes. So that's something that we've used frequently within our ePath and our HCM side, but could also be used in other instances and other pillars. And so that's out there in the template. The reminder tool and the mass withdrawal utility, those are 2 I'm going to spend a little bit more time on because we've had some recent questions about them, and there's some cool solution templates, so I thought I'd highlight those today. So I'll go into those a little bit more detail in just a second. A few others. Demo thread tool, we use this at our conferences. It's creates temporary user profiles, allows somebody into PeopleSoft temporarily to interact, and that's something that could be used more broadly. It doesn't have to just be used for our conferences and for demos. Field value group table, this is something that was created at University of Oklahoma as well for their grants. setup table that allows them to use longer descriptions than what translate values allow. So the values that show up in fields, they are able to use this table, bring that into the data pool, and that's something that we can share as well. The obfuscation, let's see if I can say that one right, tool. This was created for a client that really needed to scramble data. Typically in your development environment, that is a tool that's available as well. Org user setup. This is one that is typically, we've seen it often used in an ePath organization, but I've also used it within a campus solution. So if you don't have row level security where you've defined who has access to which organizations, this org user setup is a setup table where you can say, here are the 5 people that are approvers for this particular department or for this campus organization. And here's the role, here's the things they can do. Maybe they can be an approver, maybe they can initiate forms. So I know Princeton University uses it very heavily to define who can initiate for which departments, who can approve, who is considered a dean level. So that table is quite robust, and we have a number of different approaches that organizations have taken. So this one tends to get quite customized for the needs of the client. And then fluid form header. This again is kind of taking that ePath from our ePath template, a little header that sits at the top of your eForm, where in the ePath sense, we use it to include employee data. So it'll have their little employee picture and their name, and then a box that will pop up additional job information. But that header could easily be used within a campus environment where you've got the student's picture, if you have it, their name, and then student information that pops up as available. So that is something that could easily be used in other contexts beyond ePath. All right, I mentioned that there were 2 I was going to go into a little bit more detail. That first of those is our mass withdraw utility. We have had the ability to, I think it was resubmit, but Hartford Healthcare, they had needed the ability to do a mass withdraw. And they weren't the only one, but this video I'm showing you today is from that. And we'll just look at this quickly. But their need was to, if they had forms that were sitting out, somebody hasn't acted on them, or it's been a period of time, they needed the ability to withdraw forms in mass. And so this utility was created to provide that. I sat on a call recently with a client that was quite interested in this. Again, I see it as a great tool for managing those forms that are just sitting out there, been sitting out there for a long period of time. Maybe people have saved a form, forgotten that they saved a form, and we have this buildup of hundreds of saved forms that are just sitting there and taking up space. So this mass withdraw utility allows you the ability to then go and clean that up a little bit. Let's see if I can get my video here to play a little bit. So this is found, at least here with Hartford, we put it, added it to an existing tool, which was our workflow tools. And then we just added an additional tab there that says the mass withdraw tab. So you can see on the left there, you can choose which form statuses you want to include. So maybe forms that are on hold, saved, pending, or recycled. And then we see on the right a list of the form types. So you can check which form types you would like to work with. And then selecting the dates. So pretty important, maybe we don't want to withdraw forms that were just saved yesterday, but anything that's over 6 months old seems to make sense. So you can see on the right, he's kind of showing some of the leave forms. And so we're going to go ahead, we select those that are saved forms, and they are leave forms. We're going to set in some date parameters. And it looks like, we're setting a May 1st date, so we'll be able to get a few of those should then be set to withdraw. If we want to, we can also add in some form comments. I think this is pretty important if you're doing a mass withdraw through a utility to make sure that's noted in the comments, so we can to that. And that is run through the process monitor, through process scheduler. And now we'll see that those 3 that were met those parameters are no longer showing as saved. But we can check now and see that those will show up as withdrawn. And you can see the comments there as well. All right, I'm going to go to our next tool then, which is our reminder tool, our email reminder tool. This was originally created, I believe Hennepin County. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. And this is one of those tools that are solution templates that's been quite popular, and we've implemented it at a number of clients. We've had a number of clients request it. We've packaged it up and shared that with a number of clients. And in the process, we've seen a lot of additions, enhancements, adds to it that have all gone to kind of make improvements and continue to enhance and refine and develop this reminder tool. So I'm going to see. Let me see if I can. Sorry, 1 second. It's like. Turn the sound off there. I don't think you could hear the sound, but I was playing in my ear. So this particular demo is from Hartford as well, Hartford Healthcare. They have used this reminder tool. An example of where we've seen some improvements have been made to this email tool, or enhancements have been made to this. The initial design of this template of the email tool was to be able to send reminder emails out when a form has been sitting with an approver for a period of time. So what you're seeing on the screen is we can define which form type we want to send this reminder on, and you can see you can have multiple form types. You can also have multiple reminders that go out per form type. So we're setting the form type, the condition, the sequence, the order in which these will go out. We're setting the number of days before that first reminder would hit. So we want to give them a little time. I don't want to start hitting them immediately with reminders, but we determine how many days to wait before the first reminder, and then the days to wait between subsequent reminders. So this again is going out, it's looking to see what forms are sitting out there waiting at a particular step, and you can see on this first row, they've defined a particular step within that approval route, within the workflow. And you can also set up logic to say, I only want to send reminders on certain forms, or you can use the logic engine to define if there's logic that you want to determine beyond just forms sitting at a particular approval step. And then it will use this step roster means send that reminder to whoever it's waiting for. And then you can set up which which email you want to send them, what that email template would be, and then it will send on that cadence that you've defined. An enhancement that I have seen since then is the ability to send reminders on saved forms. So initially this was intended for forms that have already where workflow has been initiated and we're waiting for an approver. But then we had a client that wanted to be able to send reminders on saved forms. In this particular situation, they had students that were high school students that were submitting forms for concurrent enrollment, and they were concerned that students would forget about their saved form, and so they set up a reminder to send to that student to say, hey, don't forget about your form, and if you no longer want to apply, here's the link to go ahead and withdraw that form. So that's that that functionality is now available in the email reminder tool as well. All right, I think that should be enough information just about the reminder tool to give you a sense for what is possible with the reminder tool. I know this is the one that we get questions about often, which is why I wanted to share that today. Because I think it is a very useful tool. I can tell you our business analyst team, we've been using it a lot with clients because we've seen the value, and we get the requests, hey, what do we do when somebody's not responding? Email reminder tool is a great way to approach that. So I will go ahead then, and I'm going to let that one finish out, and we'll turn the time over now to Kevin. And he's going to talk to us about augmented routing and share with us their experience in why augmented routing has been such a great solution for their unique situation.
Thanks, Alisha. So yeah, as Alisha and Scott said, I'm Kevin Kuntz, and I'm with the North Dakota University system. And I'm going to share my screen here. Alisha, are you seeing my screen?
Yes, we are.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, Kevin Kuntz, North Dakota University system, and I want to talk briefly about augmented routing. The North Dakota University system is comprised of 11 institutions. We have two research universities, 4 universities, and 5 community colleges. We set out to create an additional pay or supplemental pay form, and that project began in the fall of 2021. And the first thing we realized is that workflow was going to be a huge challenge. Our research universities had complex approval routings that they required. In some instances, they wanted a potential of 20 different steps that could apply to any given form. And then they also wanted ad hoc requirements, so they could add ad hoc approvers when required. And then we have, on the other end of the spectrum, we have our community colleges who generally have a less complex workflow, so relatively simple. So what was clear is that we weren't going to be able to set up one workflow that to have a one-size-fits-all solution. So that being said, well, before I go further, I'm just going to show everybody our ad pay form just because we're super proud of it. So everybody gets a chance to see it. The solution to our workflow issues was augmented routing. And some of the benefits here of augmented routing, of the augmented routing table and workflow is, first, it's effective dated. So if you're going to make a change to the routing, you can add an effective date, and it can be as of a certain date and not impact pending forms that are that were created on a previous date. In addition, when you change your definitions, your process definitions, the rosters and visual ifs don't get blown away like they do right now on the routing tab in form setup. It also allows you to set up different routing configuration based on data in your form. So for our purposes, we needed to set it up by company. However, if you're in a student setting, it may be by business school or law school, engineering school, that kind of thing. So yeah, you could have like 2 different routings based on regular employees, or I should say benefited employees and non-benefited employees, whatever criteria you need to use. One of the features we like the most is that on a per step basis, you can control certain items. So we can, on a per step basis, we can decide if that evaluator should be able to, should have the ability to edit the form, if they should have the ability to add ad hoc approvers, and if we want to send a routing notification to that step. So you may have a person who they know that they're always going to have forms to approve and just simply don't want those email notifications coming in. It also accommodates this was useful for us, but Augmented Routing also accommodates the implementation of the GT robot. So that was helpful for our purposes. I had some screenshots here, but instead of showing screenshots of Augmented Routing, I'm actually going to go live here. So the first thing I want to show is this is in form setup here on the routings tab, and this is our add pay form. We loaded it with a process definition of 30 possible steps, and the actual setup here is actually quite simple. We just fill the rosters with one roster here, Augmented Routing roster, and copy that down. We do also have a step requiring an auto approver, so you're seeing that. And then the visual ifs, this form is pre-Helium, so the visual ifs just have the Augmented Routing step visual if. If you're implementing this on a Helium form, there is a caveat where you have to use a different a different visual if. They have them numbered now, so just something to watch out for. So yeah, so that is the routings tab. Now the actual Augmented Routing table itself, so this is what it looks like, and you can add as many tables underneath as you need. In our case, we have 13, and as I said, it is effective dated, but for our purposes, we were able to add our campuses. So you're seeing NDSCS and VCSU1 and UND01. So using that, each campus, depending on which campus the employee that's getting paid is an employee of, it will go to that particular table. And that's just configured right here in the visual ifs. So if we look at our first campus here, they only have 3 steps plus the GT robot at the very end. And so it's a very simple workflow. But our second campus here has a little bit more complex of a workflow. But a couple things I would point out is that if you notice the first steps here, so step 1 for the NDSCS campus versus step 1 for the VCSU, those steps have different names, they have different rosters, and they have different visual ifs. They're different based on should they be editable, should we enable ad hoc, do we want to start the step true so that it's evaluated once the form gets to that step, and then we can control whether we want to send the routing notification. So like I said, the campus at the top is very simple. We also have down below here, we have one of our research universities. And here they have a much more complex workflow. So using the same step numbers, but we've just expanded and added more potential steps based on criteria in the form. And of course, the visual ifs control that. And so it allows us to reuse those step numbers and then put whatever visual if criteria. And in some instances, our visual if criteria got a little bit complex. So yeah, so that is kind of the that's what brought us to using Augmented Routing. Is we had campuses with very different requirements, and we needed a way to accommodate that, and it would have been extremely challenging to take all of those tables and then to try and implement into one routing table. Even if we tried to use stages, it would have just been very difficult. So with that, I can entertain any questions. And if none, I'll hand it back to you, Alisha.
All right. I don't know if you saw, Kevin, but you have blown them away with Augmented Routing. Terry's comment, and it is a very great tool, and I think you have demonstrated it very well in a situation like yours with so many different campuses and the various needs that would have been nearly impossible without augmented routing, or extremely difficult. So it allowed Kevin to be the ultimate peacemaker to say, yes, you can have a different process, campus A, and yes, campus B. So, all right. That is the end of our presentation today. Is there any other questions that we can answer? Scott, you had a question about the recording.
Yeah, I got that. This will go out. We'll get it all cleaned up, and it'll go out. Should be first part of next week.
All right. Any other questions before we wrap up? If not, can existing forms be augmented? Alisha?
Yes.
Yeah,
they can.
Lynette,
Yeah.
yes.
And I'll just jump in there too. You absolutely can. You can take an existing form and just convert the routing over to augmented. The only thing I would be really careful of is any pending forms. So you'd want to take a look at those, and before you make that switch over, I would get those to executed status or get those completed. So.
I'll add actually on top of what Kevin just said, with augmented routing, it's actually easier to migrate workflow changes on forms that that are pending. With a SQL script, we can basically change the routing with augmented routing and then migrate forward without having to worry about the pending forms. It's actually the easiest way to do it.
Can you please provide documentation to implement augmented routing? How can people get more information?
So we would recommend you reach out to support at Gideon Taylor, and then we can share what we have, as Alisha mentioned. And I don't know, Alisha, if you could just bring up your slide about solution templates. We love solution templates. It's an absolutely amazing way for us to share things that our clients are doing with each other and making that code available so you guys have quick starts. It also means that, you know, it's whatever documentation we have comes from whatever project we implemented it on. So some have more documentation than others, but augmented workflow is one that does have a pretty good document that comes with it as well. And to Jay's point, the other side of NDUS, we've talked to them about converting their in-process forms a lot as well. So so one thing you can do is you put in your first effective dated row with 1/1/1901 or whatever you want, and you create your workflow as it is, and then you put your new effective dated row on it, so things can flow through without having to be executed. Though to Kevin's point, the fewer you have that aren't executed, the easier your life will be. So yes, please reach out to support and they can get that documentation for you.
So I see we've got another really good question for Kevin. For security setup, looking at NDSU or NDUS, how many iterations did that take to create, or how did you determine the security structure for access in a multi-college system? That could be a webinar all on its own.
Yeah, there's a couple of tiers to that question. But I'll just start back, and Lynette, you can jump in because I didn't mention it when I was presenting, but we worked with Lynette on not only the creation of our form, but also the creation of the workflow. And augmented routing, but it did take several iterations, especially for that example I showed of NDSU. In fact, that campus created a spreadsheet that mapped out all of their workflow from how it would flow from each department or groups of departments and who would be the approvers. So, but it did take several iterations, and it has been a work in process because, as you know, campuses are a moving target. Always always reorganizing. For purposes of security, so more so that doesn't touch the augmented form as much as it does the supplemental pay form itself. But we were able to control security, through row level security. Also, we did leverage some of the GT tools in the form setup so we could decide who gets to see which step, and we utilize some of those things as well. So yeah, Lynette, I don't know if you have anything to add there.
That was fantastic.
Right. I think we may have answered everything. Kevin, you were fantastic. Thank you very much. We always appreciate clients sharing their successes and sharing what they're doing with eForms. If anybody on the call today has any successes that you would like to share on a future Lunch and Learn, by all means, let us know. You can reach out to any one of us. My email address is scott@gideontaylor.com, but all of us would be fair game. And as a little aside, we know that there's a little bit of effort that our clients apply to prepping for these and setting up demonstrations and often putting together PowerPoints. We do gift you $1,000 in solution services credits if you do present on a Lunch and Learn. So a little bit of encouragement, a little bit of incentive. And I did want to comment, I don't know if she's still on, Perry, loved your enthusiasm in your comment. And yeah, we get excited about these webinars as well. So thank you, everyone. We will be sending out a link to the recording for this webinar within the next few days. So keep an eye open for that and join us for future ones. Alicia, you had a slide, I think. Did you mention the upcoming ones? I saw you flip past it. Sorry to put you on the spot.
My computer is super slow. It keeps dragging. So I do. Yeah, let me share that real quick if it will. We do have 2 upcoming Lunch and Learn sessions. We're excited to have presenters from. There we go.
So yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Keep an eye open for future webinars and hopefully you can join us in the future. You guys all have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you all.